What is up, Las Vegas and friends? We're back with the Guest List Podcast. I'm your host, Jake Gallen, and today I have a very special guest, somebody who I've known back from our UNLV Rebel days. He's had quite an adventure along the way. He was on MasterChef Season 7, finished 13th place, and he's the current culinary specialist at Valley Cheese and Wine. If you guys haven't seen it, his name is D'Andre Balaoing.
Yeah. What's up? Thanks for having me.
Like I said, thank you for coming in. You made a fabulous cake. If you guys haven't seen, I'll post it on the IG. It's like a watermelon-looking cake, and it says, at TheGuestListPod.
I had to make something for content. I had to make something for the gram for you. But yeah, so my name is D'Andre Balaoing. How's it going, everybody out there? I am currently Las Vegas's most glamorous trash can and the sweetest kid that Gordon Ramsey has ever yelled at. So it's good to be here.
That clip that I saw on there, he came over and I forget, he asked you like a specific question and you kind of just poured your whole soul out to him in about 15 seconds.
I mean, that's really all you get. Like the thing about reality TV is that everything is done in clips. Like it actually happens now in my day-to-day life. When I talk to people, I pause. It's weird. This whole like Barack Obama like affectation thing. But they're basically like, tell us everything about you. You've got 6 seconds. Make it emotional. And if you can cry, that would be really great. And I'm really good at crying on cue.
Is Gordon Ramsay, is he just as fierce off camera as he is on camera?
I'd say off camera, it's actually really interesting. He's a really big teddy bear. He's a great mentor. He really helped me launch my career and gave me what I needed. But on camera, he's a monster.
You kind of have to for reality TV.
Absolutely. I wouldn't wish being on camera with him on my worst enemy. It was the hardest thing I've ever had to do, but the best thing I've ever done in my life for sure.
Yeah, this was something I was going to bring up later, but since we're already on the topic, when I was reading your Medium blog post when you exited the season, here it comes.
Yeah.
There was something in it, and you said that one of your biggest regrets is that he never told you, great job. Do you still feel the same way towards that?
I think so. I have a tendency to sort of go off online. I think that's what the kids call it. They call it going off. Sis snapped when she wrote that Medium article. I got so tired of just seeing comments and YouTube. And at the time, that's when MasterChef first came out on Hulu. So I was getting a lot of messages. I actually posted a picture. I had like Instagram reaches a limit for DMs. And I reached that limit a few times, and it was all just a bunch of people just like telling me how awful I was. And I had to say something like for myself, for my own mental health. And I kind of poured it out there, like I'm pouring it out here. But I still think that it's a big regret for me. You go on something like MasterChef thinking that it's going to change your life, and it really does. It's a great platform to jump off of if you do super well, if production wants you to do super well. Because it's not really how well you do, it's how well they want you to appear.
It's a little asterisk in there.
Yeah, a little asterisk. But I think I'm okay. It's still a big regret of mine, but I fed him off camera, like IRL now, and he's loved my food. So I'll take it.
Yeah, so that's more importantly. As long as you're using, that whole entire experience as leverage towards everything that you've done moving forward.
Absolutely. I think a lot of people walk away from reality TV, like either having a plan or not. And I'm happy to say that for MasterChef, I really wanted to like jump in with both feet into the food world. But a lot of people walk away from MasterChef. There's a lot of becoming models, actors, comedians. There's a lot of that. But I was really there for the game. Like I wanted it. I wanted to be a chef for real.
So others, they use the publicity as more towards the influencer route, the modeling, use it as the glamour and kind of the community that they've built around them. And you're actually using it towards food. Yeah. Because that's your passion.
Food's always been a passion of mine. It was a secret back when we were in our UNLV days, but nowadays it's my life. It's become the most important thing to me.
Why'd you hide that at UNLV? Because when I knew you, I didn't know anything about your food enthusiasm.
Because I think people, you and I were both part of Greek life. That was a thing. That was a moment. But it wasn't cool. Like this is actually a really cool, fun story for me. I went to UNLV for fine arts. I went for graphic design because at the time, Instagram wasn't a thing yet. Like I'm so fucking old. I remember when Instagram wasn't real, and I wanted to go for photography and graphic design because I wanted to be a cookbook photographer. I wanted to take pictures of food. And I remember it was in my junior year, the day that Instagram went live, and everybody became a food photographer, and my whole career path kind of went out the window. But I hid it because it's not sexy. Like, it's not something that people want to talk about. Everybody wants to rage and have fun, and certainly there was some of that too. You know, we all get a little sloppy, but it just wasn't, it didn't seem cool. Like, it's probably, to be honest with you, it was one of the one things that I wanted to keep for me. There was so much about myself that was like unapologetically like gay and black and loud. And I felt like that's what I had to be, that I wanted to put everything out there, but I also wanted like a piece of myself just to be for me. And it was really nice to have those moments in the kitchen and in the fraternity house of just being able to cook something.
Yeah, you were in ETO, correct?
I was.
Yep. Where was your guys' house at?
I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about this. Okay, well, let me just preface this by saying, great organization, great guys. I met lots of great friends. I am no longer currently affiliated with ATO, for a few reasons. But Greek life was just something that I didn't. It just wasn't for me. Like, it just wasn't for me.
At least you took a crack at it. That's kind of the route that sorority girls go in. If you notice, they usually go into a sorority and they're there for about a year or two, and then they kind of find their affiliates, whether it's another fraternity or friends, and then they find out that they don't need the service anymore, essentially.
Honestly, I just loved hanging around you guys. Like, I hung around a lot of AE pies, and I loved it. But also, like, while we're on the subject of secret lives in college, I was working for Insomniac at the time, and I didn't tell anybody that I was helping, like, produce EDC. I was traveling to help put on shows. So, like, I guess in a way, like, I felt like I was doing the grown-up version of what everyone was doing at college parties. And I was just like, there was a part of me that was like, I'm too cool for this. I don't need.
That's especially when the explosion of Insomniac happened. Yeah. EDC came out here in 2011. My first EDC was 2012. But after that, around 2013, 2014, they started changing the main stage around to kind of that 3D model, and it started transitioning over into the clubs. Yeah. And it just became mainstream. I had no idea that you actually worked for them.
Mm-hmm. So I actually worked, everybody starts off on what's called guest services. It's like a green shirt kind of gig, but you're refilling water bottles, like the water refill station. That's where I started off. And then I ended up moving up into headliner experience and staff education. So just helping our night owls, our ground control. They're the people that respond to emergencies and, like, you know, make sure that the party's going. Just making sure that they know what, like, health standards are and keeping everybody safe. But also, like, doing it in a way that doesn't really, like, harsh the party. Because listen, I love me a festival moment. Have you ever traveled for any of the festivals?
Yeah, my favorite festival I've ever done is Electric Forest, which is an Insomniac festival. Yeah. I've done eForest. I traveled down and did Groove Cruise LA. Yeah. Before I've done Ultra. Drove out to California probably way too many freaking times. a few of those we used to call them suicide missions, where you drive down there the day of.
Shout out to NOS Events Center, by the way.
Dude, the OG spot. That was Escape from Wonderland 2012, and there was a few other ones around there.
That was my very first festival.
Really?
Yeah,
Escape?
Yeah.
A Halloween theme. You can't beat Halloween themes and music festivals. It's just like such a harmonious event.
Listen, I'm so gay. I love, like, any kind of themed party, any opportunity to, like, throw on a costume. I think working, especially for EDC and traveling for, like, international EDCs, like launching EDC Brazil and EDC Japan, for the first time, you learn so much production shit that doesn't get shared with people that, like, makes the festival so special for me. Like, people don't know that every EDC has a theme. And all of the stages sort of thematically change what the themes are. And, like, they're not always, like, love and beauty. Like, I remember a Countdown, one of the themes was fear. and just having like giant spider webs and like these little like ornate ghost sculptures like hanging around the festival grounds. Like people don't really notice this shit, but I love it.
You're a part of it. So you got to travel the world with Insomniac?
Yeah. I traveled for 2 festivals. I traveled for Brazil and Japan. Really wanted to launch India. I didn't do that, or Korea either. But now these days when I travel, I mean, listen, I'm so old. I'm so old. Like I these knees pop way too much to be doing all of that anymore. But when I travel these days, it's normally to attend festivals. But I'll probably be back with Insomniac soon. Nobody ever really leaves.
Can you maybe find your way with Insomniac and become a chef for them, maybe on one of their events? That sounds like a kind of like a dream.
We've definitely talked about it. It's something that as we grow older into like festival culture, I think people are looking for a more holistic experience, and I think food and beverage is definitely part of that. I don't know about you, but when I go to festivals, I don't always treat my body the way that I should, and I kind of need something more than just like corn dogs and chicken strips. So yeah, it's definitely something that we're working on, something that I've pitched, and we'll see what happens. I can't really. Don't want to go into too much.
That's fine. For the sake of confidentiality, I know you have a bunch of things going on.
Yeah.
And it's funny that you say that, because I actually had this conversation with one of my friends a few weeks ago, and we were talking about once life gets back together off of COVID, like what festivals are we going to go down to?
Yeah.
And everything like that. And for the first time in my life, we were discussing VIP tickets. And I was like, how am I old? And we were talking about, like, why do we want VIP tickets? And it's because, for the most part, the food, there's no lines, and there's no lines in the bathroom. And not necessarily, like, the stage. You know, I like to dive into the stage every once in a while. But once you get older, you kind of understand what the VIP experience is for. Like when you're 19 or 20 out there, why would anybody ever get a VIP ticket? It's front row or die every time. You know, bass heads, we're going hard, even though I hate bass music.
Do you really?
I've never been a big fan of dubstep.
Okay.
I'm a bit more of a trance person.
Same. Did you ever go to Dream State?
Yeah, the first 3 years. First 3 years is a great time. It's definitely a great culmination and production as far as festivals. Mm-hmm. Now that I've been around to a few, been to Coachella a handful of times too. It's a different vibe, but there's nothing that can really beat just like a straight electronic music festival.
Pretty much the only thing I hear is that like you love trance and you need a place to sit now. Like that's it. That's all I know. But yeah, I'm with you. I definitely need, if anybody ever like wants to invite me to a festival, please have some place to sit. I need it.
So here, we had a great opening conversation. I want to give everyone a little bit more context of who you are. I know, like I've mentioned a few times already, you've done a handful of things, and there's some things that you've talked about. So can you just give everyone just a brief 2-3 minute context of your backstory?
Yeah. How's it going out there? This is my NPR voice. Do you like it? Okay, so my name is D'Andre. I'm a military brat. So my mom and my dad, my stepdad, were both in the Air Force. They're both retired now, but I grew up all over the world. They dragged me everywhere. I spent most of my life in Japan. I lived in Japan when Pokemon came out.
Ooh, yes, we had a very lovely pretext conversation about Pokemon cards because I have a bunch laying around my apartment right now.
Japanese was actually one of my first languages. So I learned Japanese and English at the same time. I went to Japanese schools growing up. I spent some time in Portugal, Germany, the UK, Guam. High school is supposed to be 4 years. I went to 3 different high schools. I was always a little different. I grew up very expressive about my queerness, which was not super great for my parents. We couldn't really see eye to eye on a lot of things, and I ended up leaving. I ran away from home when I was 16, 17, and I came to Vegas, and it just seemed like the kind of thing that I wanted to do. Like it just fuck it, like let's just go to Vegas and let's just be gay as hell. And I did a lot of things to survive in this town. A lot of things that people that we went to school with didn't know about because I wanted to assimilate and I didn't want people to know. Like for example, my first couple years at UNLV, I was technically homeless.
Wow.
And I took showers every day at the SRWC and I ate at the dining commons. But Yeah, I'm not entirely sure. So I graduated from UNLV. I couldn't really find a job in my industry that I loved in graphic design. I found a job with an agency and I didn't love it. And that's such a hard pill to swallow as people who are like sort of encultured into this idea like of the American educational system that like you must do this, but they never tell you what happens if you like once you graduate and you find a job and you decide that like the last 6 years were a lie for you. So I ended up, I applied for a show called MasterChef. I had no intention on like being on television or being a star. I didn't think anything was going to come of it, and it did. The fun fact is I was actually on 2 seasons of MasterChef. Yeah, I know. All these little tidbits. I was on season 5. I actually cut class and failed a final to go audition for MasterChef.
Worth it.
Worth it. And that's one of the reasons why I was kicked out of Greek life. My grades were awful. My grades were awful, and I couldn't tell anybody why. I'm like, I'm actually doing this TV thing, and it's really important. But I auditioned. I made it to the top 100. They cast 100 people at a time. I got eliminated early. Gordon Ramsey told me to come back when I thought I was ready. I came back for season 7. I did what I did. I have no regrets, and it launched my career. We're back here in Vegas now. I'm living downtown, just like you. Yeah,
neighbors.
It's the hood. I live downtown. I have a partner of 10 years. That's the other thing people don't know about. I've been like wifed up this whole time secretly. But I'm living downtown with my partner and our chickens, and I just bake my ass off. It's a lot of there's a lot of sugar and cheese and meat that happen in my day to day now, but I love it. I'm just focused now on like trying to figure out. I think the great thing about this whole like pandemic sort of situation is it really helped me sort of have more genuine and authentic conversations with myself about like what I want my life to look like after this. Because this sort of thing has sort of like raised the field and leveled everyone to the point where you can really go anywhere from here. Like this is kind of like like Game of Thrones chaos is a ladder thing where like you really get to decide what you do now for a living and what your life will look like after this. So I'm trying to seize that opportunity.
Yeah, there's a phrase that I harp on so much through this podcast, and eventually I'm just going to get it put in the background because I say this so much, is that the COVID pandemic's the best rebranding opportunity we're all going to get. I've said this probably almost every single episode, and everyone's tired of hearing it, but it's echoed so much through all the different guests because of how introspective it is. Just being at home in your thoughts, and some people want to focus on, the politics and the world's falling, and other people want to use this as a rebuilding opportunity to figure out what we want to do.
Yeah. For me, and I hope it sounds like for you too, this is a really cathartic, creative moment. Like it seems like this podcast and all of this growth that you've done that like, by the way, big fan, like
Thank
really
you.
big fan. All of this growth that I've watched you like take on and like sort of blossom into has really happened like during this pandemic. And it's a really great thing to see. Like we love to see it, Jake, Gallen, like keep it going.
I appreciate it.
But I want to ask you a question.
Of course.
Yeah.
Fire away.
This is my podcast now. How did you've had some of the most robust and interesting guests on this podcast. You've had friends of mine, you've had people that I wish were friends of mine, and you've had people that like, I just love. But how did you find me? How did you decide on this? This is pretty different. This is kind of far from like your typical guest list pod.
So I'd say the first 6 guests and maybe the first 15 guests, there's maybe about 11 or 12 that I knew personally. A few of them were people who reached out to me. But I just have this vision of being a discovery platform for Vegas. There's so much variety and unique talent that resides in Vegas that sometimes just goes undiscovered and should be. And I've been such a big fan of podcasts when I decided to get sober about 2.5 years ago. And I really changed my life. I deleted all of the club social media platforms that I followed, like the social accounts, all the raves, anything that had to do with partying. I stopped unfollowing, got rid of my TV, started building new habits. And I kind of just like found a lot of solace in podcasting. And more importantly, long form conversational podcasts, like Joe Rogan, Tim
Yeah.
Ferriss.
Yeah.
You know, there's a bunch of them that kind of digress outwards.
I love Tim Ferriss.
Yeah, he was one of the first ones that I really felt in touch with. He has such unique conversations and questions more so than anything.
Yeah.
But people always say all the time that Vegas is going to be the next LA. Joe Rogan resides in LA. You know, we've probably heard this echoed since we were in college. It was probably echoed before that.
Yeah.
But while I've worked on the Strip over the last 10 years, I have seen a lot of growth and a lot of talent, more so, you know, popularity come to the town, emphasis on, I call the strip the Hollywood of partying in the world, you know, because a lot of these servers and bartenders even have tens or hundreds of thousands of followers.
Yeah.
So it's starting to get attention. And I was like, wow, why is there no talk show in Vegas? Like no go-to talk show. I could not find one for the life of me. You know, I found some podcasts and some shows that always focus on Vegas, the events that are happening on Vegas, you know, who's where, whatever the case is.
Yeah.
But if Vegas is going to be the next LA, then I want to have my foot in the ground as far as somewhere where people come get discovered and talk. And
do you want to be the next Joe Rogan?
I would love that. That would be awesome. You know, I'm a little bit of a hypocrite for saying this, but I don't like to put my name as a resemblance towards somebody else as the next Joe Rogan. I think that kind of boxes you in, even though Joe Rogan is literally the ceiling right now. You know, I don't think there can be a ceiling. And so oftentimes a lot of my audience members have said this is like a Joe Rogan Vegas show, which is awesome because that's kind of how I had envisioned it in the beginning because I love what he's done. But right now I can't do 3-hour episodes because I don't have the credibility yet to do that. So I kind of shut them off a little bit.
Okay.
And when I came to you, you know, you had I think you mentioned something or you commented on one of the stories I'd posted, and I was just like, oh my God, yes, perfect guest. I was like, perfect guest, breaking out of the traditional, you know, business owner.
Yeah. Well, we still own a business.
Yeah.
There's just a lot of frosting on it.
Yeah. You went a little bit of the different route. You went through a few trials and errors as far as, you know, hiding different things that you're doing. And then you found your TV fame, and then you started off in the business route.
Right.
But I think you have such a unique story and personality, and obviously you're a great conversationalist and you aren't afraid to express yourself.
Well, I just want to say that on a personal note, the last time I saw you with my own two eyes, I think was at a highlighter party. So like I am ridiculously like over the moon proud of you.
I appreciate
like,
it.
Just like, oh God. Okay. So I think if we're talking about business ownership, I think the impetus for a lot of things, and it almost sounds like with your podcast as well, is you want to like lay claim to something that you feel like you can like bring to the world. Like I think that's something that's super important to people in our generation right now, like millennials, Zoomers, like, it seems like we're finding ways specifically with like technology and experiences to share our gifts with people that we feel like would appreciate them, and sort of just like lends credence to it. So for me as a business owner, as a brand, I go through the same journey that everybody else did. I think Michael Sheedy actually talked a lot about this, about how like everyone with a gift to share to the world, with something to give to others, it always starts with yourself. Like it always starts with like, this is something that is for me. For me, it was cooking. Like this is something that I did for therapeutic like needs. I needed to sort of like build a wall between, oh God, gross. I needed to like build a wall. I needed to build a wall between me and like all the bullshit that was happening at UNLV, like collegiate sort of bullshit. But now it's become about, I want to give those feelings to other people. I think food is, this is actually something that happened the other day at my shop. There are people that, you know, you have to help, that do business with, that whose political beliefs don't align with yours, and that's fine. That's part of being a grown-up. But I was super interested in how like I physically like recoiled, like how hard it was for me to like help people that like wore their political beliefs like on their shirts or on their sleeves. And I realized though that like in offering them pieces of cheese and like charcuterie meats and like tastings of wine, I'm like, no, this is how we fix the world. Like, we can't all agree on some things, but we can all agree that like cheese is fucking great. And who doesn't love a sausage? Am I right, ladies? But no, it was great because like it was a full circle moment for me, and it brought me back to this place where when I started this journey a long time ago, I told myself that like if you want to understand people best, no shade to the gym heads out there. I love looking at you. But the best place to start is at the table. The most important conversations we will ever have with our families, with our friends, with ourselves will often happen at the dinner table. And if we really want to get to know each other and sort of bridge divides, we have to build a longer table and not a taller wall. I think that's so important to me. And it's just become important to share that with other people.
Yeah, that's food is something that has translated even to the beginning BC days when rice and grains were used as a medium of exchange.
Yeah.
So it's literally just ingrained into our primal roots of humanity that this is one bonding experience that people necessarily won't always fight over, even if there's maybe some cultural flavor difference or whatever the case is. It's something that just makes us happy at the end of the day.
It's a universal. It's a conversation that everybody gets to be a part of. And there are very few things in this day and age that everyone gets to be a part of in terms, if we're talking about like conversations and what, like who gets to come to the metaphorical table, and the figurative table as well. But everybody has an opinion about food. And the great thing about that is that opinion is always right. It's always right. It's okay if like we don't like the same things, but as long as we're both eating and like sustaining ourselves, that's an awesome thing. I want to ask you, because I got to peek in your fridge. I actually wanted to do like a little like Jake Gallen like food tour. Hey. When I come to people's houses, like one of the first things I do is I look in their fridges. When was the last time that you had a meal that was like good for your soul? Like when was the last time that like you like walked away from like a dinner or a lunch or whatever and you were like, this was a moment for me?
So my home cooked meals are very basic, very average.
Sure.
I probably eat the same 7 or 8 meals.
Okay.
But when I go out to eat, that's kind of where I splurge a little bit.
What do you like to eat? What do you order?
When I go out to eat?
Yeah. Okay. We're on a first date.
Okay.
And I'm like, no, he's ordering for both of us.
Wow. It's probably also something a little basic, maybe something with some rice.
Okay.
We get a little bit of carbs in there.
Yeah.
I'm a big sweet potato fan, so if there's something with the sweet potato option, I'm in. I'm 100% in for that.
Okay.
I've gone through so many different diets through college. I did keto for 9 months. I
heard that.
Yeah, I've done veganism. I've done a carnivore diet. Now I'm doing intermittent fasting because that's a little more practical.
Sure.
And I've kind of just weeded myself a little bit off of red meats unless I go out to eat, and then I'll kind of dive into it a little bit more.
Okay.
But I've noticed that the digestion's a little off at times unless I just commit myself to keto or something like that.
Right.
So I've gone to a little bit more of a plant-based diet. I eat a lot of eggs. I eat kind of small amounts of chicken.
Okay.
I'm a big seafood fan, so I'd probably order something seafood.
Really?
If that's the case.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm a big sushi guy. I grew up eating seafood. My mom was obsessed with oysters and clams, so we used to eat that all the time.
Can I take you out to dinner?
Please, let's do
I
it.
would love that.
Love that.
That sounds awesome. I know that I don't know a lot about like the internal processes about how food gets metabolized, and I know like you're a kinesiology like sort of buff, but I do know that like I love the idea that proteins become carbs, and that's something that I'm also like sort of tooling around with a little bit. I love that for you. Like, are you happy? Do you feel fulfilled?
Yeah, always. Let me say this. When I was younger, I was a really big kid. I was really fat in high school up until I did football my freshman year. I lost a ton of weight.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
I never would have guessed.
So there is still a little bit of a self-conscious vibe that's around my personal image at times. There's something that at the nightclub, I used to always make fun of people, and this is something that I do all the time too. I used to call it a touchy ab syndrome, where it's like everyone who works there, girls, guys, they walk around flexing their abs and like touching it to like make sure that it's still there, because a lot of people who are in that industry also used to be bigger. And so, yeah, there's a lot of like self-consciousness that surrounds it, even though everyone's beautiful and very confident in themselves. But that kind of hinders people in the back of their mind that you don't want to be that person again.
I think that's super interesting. I know, like a lot of people in this town, people join the service industry, and there's a lot of like FOH people, but like I'm here to tell you, like from the back of the house, like the sweaty people, like the sweaty, sweatier, like bigger people that are just back there, like prepping the food and like cooking everything to send out to the beautiful people. I've never noticed that. Like I think like everybody just kind of like homogenizes and looks the same to me. It's just like this like swath of like just beautiful. Like it just seems like everybody's beautiful, and everybody back here like in the kitchen is just an animal. We're all just like beasts. But that's interesting. I never knew that you were a bigger kid.
Bigger kid, long hair too at the time in high school. I had long hair down to my butt almost.
Like ponytail?
Yes. Long hair. I was a hippie kid for a long time. So those memories come up sometimes when I eat. So I eat very healthy because I also want to live forever.
Sure.
This is something I've said for even since I was in high school, and being in a kinesiology major, health science. The best way to live for a long time is through your food.
Huh.
So you have to eat healthy.
Oh no. Oh no. Well, that cake is I'm
definitely going in on that. There's something with Michael Sheedy that you probably heard about, cheat day.
Yeah.
My favorite cheat meals are pastries and
really?
cakes and cookies and donuts.
Do you have a sweet tooth?
My thing when it comes to sweet tooths, I don't eat sweets a lot, but when I do, it's the entire cake.
Love it. Well, I hope you love this one. It's inspired by Twinkies.
So I have a question for you.
Yeah.
When I watched some of your MasterChef, highlights, and you're cooking whole meals, but you've seemed to transition a little bit to pastries. What sparked that transition?
So when you go into MasterChef, this is like inside baseball, y'all. But when you go into any sort of casting, but specifically food shows, they want to cast a certain number of people of every specialty. So if you've never seen a season of MasterChef, basically Gordon Ramsay declares 40 people every year. Like, these are the best 40 cooks in America. And each of them has to have a specific specialty. They always cast a vegan person. They always cast like a Southern barbecue person. They cast a couple of bakers, always a couple of bakers. There was me, and then there was somebody who is very near and dear to my heart who went home on episode 1. Oh, God, that sucks. But I came in as a pastry focus. Like, they know who you are. And actually, in order to be on the show, you have to go through, nobody trips and falls into the MasterChef kitchen on accident. We go through like a whole big regimen of like boot camp and like recipe development. Basically, before you even like set foot in LA, you have to send them like a book of like, these are 30 things that I know how to cook, that I've written recipes for, and here are pictures of them. Because MasterChef, one of the prizes of MasterChef, in addition to $250,000, is a cookbook deal, and they need to basically gauge where you're at, like how marketable is this. So it's really not a competition of like who cooks the best on the spot. It's who has the best book concept, who can sell the most cruise tickets. But, there is some game playing. But, I've always been a pastry sort of focus. I think I've always had a sweet tooth, like a really big sweet tooth. Oh, my God. They say everybody's like a chocolate or a fruit person, and I'm like, put the chocolate on the fruit. Like, give it to me. But I've always been like a really big like pastry person. And I think the thing that I love about it as I've gotten older and I've realized is that like cooking savory food, if you've ever seen like a chef cook or even like the movie Chef or anything like that, cooking savory food or a meal is really an art form. There's a dance that happens to it. Like when you make things, it's almost choreographed. You take the fish out of the fridge, you throw it in the pan, you season it gracefully, you take it out of the pan and put it on the plate. Or if you're me, you just eat it right out of the pan and hope nobody's looking. But pastry is there's nowhere to hide. Like when you're baking, like everything is a science. So you have to be really good at your job. You can't bullshit your way through it. And I love that. I think I love that. There's nothing you can do to make like an ugly cake pretty. I've always been drawn to like do or die kind of things.
Ooh, I never even thought about that aspect of food. There's no real shortcuts in it because the taste, obviously, there's no way around that. And the presentation is almost just as important.
If it's bad, it's bad. If it's bad, it's bad. Have you ever had anything that looked delicious but like wasn't?
Probably.
Or vice versa.
Probably,
like
yeah.
Something that you were like, ugh, that doesn't look good, but like, yeah, fantastic. Yeah.
So do you have any food like allergies or any foods that you hate that you're not a fan of? I would think being a chef or a pastry, you'd have to kind of indulge into the whole wide array of foods.
So the answer to your first question is yes. I've actually lived my entire life with a pretty severe tree nut and peanut allergy. So I've never had peanut butter. I've never had Nutella. I don't know what a Reese's looks like. I don't see it. Like, don't even try. But I cook with my nose. That's something that, like, as a chef, like, you develop your palate, but you also develop your nose. You taste a lot of things with your nose. And so I'm at the point now, like, where I'm like, honestly, I'm at the height of my game right now. I can smell something and tell you if it needs more salt. But I can smell things, and I know what nuts are supposed to smell like. And so I know when it's time for a nut. Yeah, I do live with a lot of sensitivities. In terms of things I don't like, I'll try anything twice, man.
Wow, hold on. I want to pause you.
Yeah.
Pause that for a second, because I've actually said this in a previous podcast. I
Yeah.
believe it was with Anne Bernard. Her expertise is she created a business called First Time Challenges.
Mhm.
And I said that my life philosophy is that I'll try anything twice.
Yeah,
That's literally wholeheartedly what I believe.
I'll try anything twice. I am when it comes to food, I am such a down bitch. I am here for it. I think that first time when you experience something new, and it's not just about food, but anything, any kind of experiential sort of activity. The first time when you experience something new, that really is like you getting over your own hurdles of like, this is like expectations. And then maybe the second time you try something new, you really come at it with like, I think, a clearer sort of mindset, because it doesn't scare you anymore. Like, you know what to expect. But about things I don't like, I'll be honest, I've never been a big celery fan. I know it's like, it's good for you, whatever, water, crunchy, okay, whatever. Yeah, no, I don't like it. No, raw, cooked. I love it in like a Thanksgiving stuffing, but yeah, no celery for me, thanks. And also, I don't like cantaloupe.
I've never been a big fan of it. I'll eat it,
I
but
don't know why. I want to love it. Like, I
you think
want
it's
to
the
love
color
it.
that it's just kind of bland looking?
Maybe the texture. Like, I think oftentimes they're like mushy and like tasteless, and honestly, like, they're just. I think it's not that I don't like this. It's that there are other things that I'd rather put in my body, in my mouth. Stop.
So here, let me ask you this then.
Yep.
As a chef, outside of taste,
Yep.
what would you say is the most important metric to cooking a good meal?
So the official answer is smell, or visual, but my gut tells me it's proximity.
What do you mean by that?
Yeah, proximity and time. So as people, one thing that I've loved about sort of this boom of cooking at home and like meal delivery services is that people have come to realize that the quality of your food is adversely affected by how far away it's coming from. And that doesn't extend to just like finished dishes, but also ingredients. Seasonality is a thing, and it's something that is super important to me, something that I like to tell people about. If you're not familiar, all fruits and vegetables grow in seasons, and it's the reason why sometimes when you go to the supermarket or Smith's or whatever, some things are really expensive, like prices change, and sometimes things aren't there at all. It's the reason why you don't see pumpkins in the summer. But buying things in season is not only better for your wallet, but it also it has profound effects on like the economics and job stability of people who grow crops specifically in your neighborhood. So finding things that are closer to home. If you live in Las Vegas, which I hope you do because Las Vegas is amazing, there are actually quite a few like farm growers here in town that have co-ops that people don't go to. I love it because it's cheaper than the supermarket and things are organically grown, and it's kind of like a farmer's market. Like there's a place called Gilcrease Orchards that's open on Saturday mornings. Everyone should go. But just like peaches on trees and plums and tomatoes and zucchinis and eggplants and lettuces, and like cheaper than Smith's, and like you pick it yourself. And it just also gives you like a more profound sense of where your food comes from and why you should give a shit about it. Because that work isn't easy. the labor of like picking food isn't easy.
Yeah, there's a huge emphasis now on natural foods and not necessarily the branded or organic, because we know that's kind of more of a market ploy at this point.
Yeah.
You know, now they do. I've seen things like organic toothpaste and organic other things. You're like,
Gluten-free water?
I make fun of one of my friends all the time because he drinks Celsius energy drinks. Do you know what those are?
No.
But on it says organic, and he's like, it's healthy. It's better than Red Bull because it says organic. They use organic things. I'm like, there's still, if you look in the ingredients, there's still a lot of X's, Y's, and Z's in there.
Yeah.
And that's definitely not good for your health.
I'm a big proponent of like, if you can't pronounce something or if you can't read it on a label, it's probably not something you should put in your body. But I'm also like, I'm a realist. Like, people are people, and I think it's super important to not like judge yourself or come down too hard on yourself for the choices that you make. If it's something that like makes you happy or that your body wants, you should listen to your body.
Yeah, it's really about balance and listening to your body too, and not just what people tell you, because everyone's body's different. Your calorie intake is different. Everyone's energy expenditure is different based off whatever you're doing in the world. So there is no one size fits all, and I know that plagues people at times because they look at somebody's body image or whatever they're doing, and they're like, their diet's not working for me. I don't get it, or whatever they're eating and putting in their body's not working for me.
Right. I think that's why I prefer, instead of asking what your diet is, I prefer to ask like, what do meals look like for you, and are you happy about it? Are you satisfied? Are you satiated? I think that's what's most important to me, because I think, as people, as like organisms, we as human beings, I think we have a really, we have a really big challenge in the way of like accepting mortality. And I think people have a really hard time of like, it's almost taboo kind of to sort of acknowledge that like your body was made to expire. And it's not to say that you shouldn't take care of yourself. Like, please do. But also like understand that this is not made to be sustainable, and your body will change over time and things will break down, and that's okay. That's part of the process. But like, taking care of yourself should mean something different at every phase of life. And so just try to eat to be happy, but take care of yourself.
We got to keep those telomeres lengthened, guys. That's that's the nerdy cell division aspect of keeping yourself alive in time. Yeah, so here, there was actually something else in the very beginning that I wanted to touch on. And my previous guest, actually, right before you, have you ever heard of Carrie Dodd?
No.
So Carrie Dodd is a homeless charity. She calls it a street outreach agency. She started it in 2010, so that's probably around the same time that you were on your homeless streak. And her name's Meredith Spriggs. They actually have like a garden out here called Carrie Dodd Gardens that they help get people off the streets. And she used to be a VIP host, and so she kind of runs the streets like a VIP host, and sees different people out there, engages in conversations, and offers all kinds of different services.
I love that.
But she was homeless, and she told me about her homeless experience. She was 9 months, but it was more of like a couch surfing experience than your basic, or I guess more widely perceived, older white guy that's roughed up living in the corner of the street. Can you explain to us a little bit of how your homelessness experience was and what kind of effect that had on you while you were in college?
So home insecurity, and it also, I mean, insecurity in general, but specifically housing and food insecurity can be real problems for different people. And the reason why I say can is because they're often compounded with like socioeconomic issues about addiction. For some people, it's not as hard of a challenge, but it's still a rough way to go through. But I really appreciate Carrie Dodd. That sounds incredible. I have to check that out because I love community garden programs. But for me, housing insecurity was difficult because it was coming off the back of a sort of like familial abandonment. I don't really know how to explain to people how it feels when the people that are sort of charged with like caring for you and loving you in this sort of like holistic and like holistic and familial and nuclear way just don't anymore. And so I lived, if you want to talk about like sort of day-to-day infrastructure, I'm sorry.
Dive in. Okay.
I lived partly in my car. I had a 1999 Volkswagen Passat. It had a little over 200,000 miles on it, and it didn't turn on. But I lived actually off of Elizabeth Street, which is pretty close to Yoshinoya. Yeah,
right next to Dorothy, or right in all those little duplex area.
Yeah. So I lived in my car. Like I said, I would go to the gym to shower and to take care of myself. It wasn't difficult finding free food on campus. I mean, like, they're literally just throwing Raising Cane's at you kids, like, go get it. But it was difficult because I was dealing not only with like the infrastructural challenges, like the physical challenges of home insecurity, but also just sort of like it's very taxing on your mental health. Like the idea that like your family may not be super, I don't want to say they don't want you around, but your family isn't like super thrilled about you being like close to them because of like something that's immutable. You know, human sexuality is like weird and fluid, and I don't even put words on it anymore. Like it's just people are who they are, and I think it's when people just don't get it, like that, like this is not something that I chose for myself, but I'm being punished for it. It's a really hard way to go. So, so I lived in my car. I spent a lot of time at Lead Library. Eventually, when I rushed a fraternity that we talked about, I ended up moving in pretty close by, actually, to where I was squatting. That was the original house, and I lived there for a brief moment of time, and that's sort of when my life picked up. I worked in student government for a while as a receptionist, and I don't know, like it's not that I don't have anything to say. I think I have too many things to say, and I think it's something that like I just want to touch on, that like it doesn't ever really leave you. Like right. I'm still processing. Like I turned 30 in a week, and like I'm still processing those feelings. I've healed a lot with my family. We make contact with each other pretty regularly, and I'm still healing. Like there are just sometimes when words get said, you just can't take them back. Mm-hmm. And
especially from a loved one, because before you leave the nest, that is your main group, your family, whether it's 2 people or 10 people.
Sure.
And so once you go out on your own, it's this shock, especially being 16 and then out in Vegas too, the whole new monster.
Oh, listen, like in the name of survival, I did just about anything I had to. Like my partner and I joke about like, I'm going to go dance for money, but like I did a little bit of that. The Fruit Loop is next to UNLV. I did, you could catch me on that go-go box fishing ones. There's a bar downtown here that took me in, and I worked as a bar porter and a bar back, a really like piece of shit old dive, and I love it. That's the kind of stuff that I love. I love it. But I've been super fortunate and blessed to have people in my life sort of come around me and fill in those spaces and help me figure out what my life should look like. And I honestly don't know where I'd be without them. There's something that we talk about a lot in queer culture about like chosen family versus biological family. And in the same way that you have, like I've chosen a family that it gives like unconditional love, and I think that's something that like I want for everybody. But as we've seen even lately, in the pandemic, that's not really something. People don't all have like a support system of love to like lean on. But I want it for everyone though.
That ideology is something I can relate to, because I grew up as an only child. So you have to find your own groups. And I grew up on the east side, and when I went to college, there was maybe 3 or 4 of my own classmates who ended up going to UNLV. So it's almost like starting all over.
Yeah.
And so it is weird, because you are on your own at times, and being an only child, that carries with me no matter where I go.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to force yourself to find groups, but you don't know what group is the right group to choose, and you don't want to go through the heartbreak all over again, because sometimes that can be devastating.
It makes it really hard to like connect with people and to trust people, and it sort of wears down on you a little bit. Like I suffer from chronic apology syndrome, where I apologize about everything, even if I'm not sorry, even if it's not something that like is worthy of an apology. And I'm working on it. I know it's like really, it's annoying for a lot of people, but that's just part of my sort of mental health struggle. But it makes you feel like you're not really worthy of people's time. It just makes you feel like you sort of question and sort of lash out about like whether or not people are going to leave. And it just makes it really hard to form like authentic relationships where you're bringing your whole self to the table. I'm so sorry, Mom. Where you're bringing your whole self to the table. And I think as I've gotten older, it's become easier. But I know it's a really difficult thing, and I want it for everyone. I do.
Yeah, youthfulness it's a tough and trying time, especially your brain isn't fully formed until 25. So I felt like I didn't even get really on track until about 25, even going through, like you said, last time you saw me was a highlighter party. Yeah, we were a wild bunch at UNLV, wild animals and UNLV, it's a commuter school by definition, but you get people from all over the world that come in, and there's so much diversity there that everyone's really trying to find out who they are.
Yeah.
And one of the big organizations to go to is Greek Life.
Yeah.
And you found your first support, I guess you call it support group, organization.
You find your tribe. Mm-hmm. You do. And it doesn't have to be anything like, I know that sounds super dramatic and like really heavy, but it doesn't have to be anything like that. Like it can be an interest group. Just reach out and like hold on with both hands when you find people who just genuinely give a shit about you. And it sounds like duh, but it's really hard to find sometimes. It really is. There's lots of people that'll come out when you got a bottle and you're on a list, but like who's going to come get you from the airport? Your tire's flat. Like who's coming for you? If that's a struggle, then like you might need to sort of reevaluate your tribe. I often like to ask people, I put them on the spot, and I'm like, $1 million on the line, you make one phone call, and like the person has to pick up. Who is it? And I think people often struggle with like coming up with a name because, one, we all communicate with text. Please don't call me. Please don't call me before the double digits. I'm dead to the world. But yeah, I think people are slowly starting to realize that, and I'm becoming like, and I'm super happy about it, but people are slowly starting to realize that like their relationships need to be founded on something like more solid.
Not founded on likes and comments.
I like a like and a comment. But I'm not gonna lie.
But the foundation, that's a faulty foundation. At the end of the day is kind of what we're trying to emphasize through this.
Yeah.
Because social media, like you said, it came later in our college experiences. I think I was a sophomore or junior.
How old are you, Jake?
28.
You're 28? Okay. Yeah. So I would say that like you may be like right on the cusp, but I would call myself like I was the last generation, like my generation, 1990. That's the last like year of birth where like we lived before the internet. Like I remember getting internet at the house and how big of a deal it was, and it was just like shitty dial-up and going on like AOL chat rooms. But like
ASL,
yeah, that's that shit I like. No, don't kill me, Dan. But yeah, I remember what relationships were like before the internet, and it just like it blows my mind how like intuitive like these technology systems are to use, like handing like a baby an iPad and like immediately like just knowing how to use it. I don't want to be that old guy that's like things were better back then. I don't think so. I just think things were different. But I'm super interested in how relationships get formed today.
Yeah, because kind of how society has, it's kind of like a produced society where everything is taken in 6-second to 15-second sound bites. Yeah. And, you lived through that and you see it. So I think this is why there's been kind of a surge in popularity to long-form conversational podcasts, because people are craving to hear just normal conversation that isn't necessarily just taken out of context all the time.
Sure.
That's why I don't edit anything, because I hate how people, and more specifically the media, takes any conversation, left, right, up, down, whatever, out of context, and it makes people angry. But if you could go in, and now that they say that people's attention span is actually lower, I've actually, that's what I was about to say, I've come to learn that people's attention span are actually much longer than you think. It just has to be in a format that's not produced in 6-second vines or now 40-second TikToks.
Okay.
So yeah, it's like I said, it's something that you saw through reality TV.
Yes.
And so
Would you ever do reality TV?
I probably would.
What show? If you say Survivor, I don't know.
So I haven't. I think the last reality show I actually watched was A Shot of Love, Tequila.
Yeah.
Back in the day, that was one of my favorites. I also watched like the first season of Jersey Shore, just because a lot of my friends were really into it.
Okay.
I think something like The Real World would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
I don't even know what other kind. The TV reality shows that they put on Netflix, I don't ever touch.
It's a wasteland, but I'm not gonna lie, it's the hedonist in me. I love bad television.
I actually just deleted my Netflix account yesterday.
Did you really?
Yeah, I'm gonna do an AMA in 30 minutes so people can ask me how I survived.
I mean, you don't have a TV,
so like, yeah, I watched some of it on the computer, but Netflix, it just seems like it's just so watered down to me now, and I think where Netflix has taken their platform is more towards the Zoomers, which is Gen Z. I call them the Zoomers. Yeah. The next generation to ruin the world. Sorry guys for those listening out there, or the quarantine babies. That could be the quarantine boomers. Mm-hmm. So it just seems like they've kind of gotten away from quality, and now they're just producing more quantity.
Sure.
So, and that's something good.
No.
I was gonna say that's just something in society that the quality is hard to find.
Sure. I just love content aggregation. I think I actually, contrary to popular belief, I don't have a ton of free time. And so I just need to mainline it. Just give it to me, whatever's easiest. I just love a good streaming service, but I totally get where you're coming from.
Yeah, this guy just came from a filming right before this too.
Whatever. There's a lot of secret things in the works. We're filming lots of stuff. Yeah.
So now I mentioned it actually. What is the confidentiality aspect behind being involved in all these other, I guess, interests and involvement in all these other projects?
Yeah.
How is it feeling working on all these but not being able to talk to them? Is there some sort of excitement?
This is actually something that not just relative to reality TV, but just business in general. I know there are a lot of NDAs and things like that flying around all over the place. They've seemingly become a lot more common for things. If you and your friend are just talking about a startup or something that you're interested in, we got to do the paperwork first. If you meet somebody at a club and you want to sleep with them, maybe they're famous, you got to sign something first. But I'll say that it's lonely, and it kind of makes me feel like a crazier person than I am, because I can't tell you how disingenuous it sounds when you tell people I have this really cool thing coming, but I can't say anything about it. But it's exciting. It's exciting because I build anticipation for the reaction of other people. I live to see people's eyes sort of light up when I'm surprise, guess what? I'm doing this thing now. And now I'm over here, and now I'm over here. But if I have to give sort of best practices, please, it took me forever. I want to share a couple of tips, if that's okay. If anybody out there is doing a startup or starting a business or I don't know, doing an OnlyFans, I don't care. But if you're doing it and that's your gig, that's cool. I support you. Send me the link so I can send you money. But please, I want everyone to know that ask for compensation. It is uncomfortable, and I get it, especially if you're working with people that you might perceive to be bigger than you, maybe an entity, maybe a production company, a musician, whomever. But you have something to give to the world. You have something to share. You have a gift. And if you have been tapped, if you have been found for a project, please don't ever tell yourself that it is an honor to be a part of something without being compensated for it. I hate the idea of like gig work and like not gig work, but like we call it spec work in the design world, or tastings for people in the food and beverage world, where you'll come in with like an idea to show people during an interview, and then they don't take you, or they pass on you for the project, and then you see it like on a menu or like developed as a product. It happened pretty recently with there's a really big sort of shipping company that starts with an A, that met with a group of startups and sort of poached their ideas. And I think that's a really shitty thing to do. But please ask for compensation and like read your agreements, like read them down. If you don't get them, please ask for help. Like send it to me. Like, I don't care. Like, I will help you, because a lot of times like NDA and like confidentiality agreements aren't drafted to help you. And they're oftentimes there to limit your like forms of recourse that you can take if things happen and go south. For example, I can't tell you how many pilots I filmed for shows thinking that they were going to go somewhere. And I get super excited. You know, I can talk about it. Why? Fine, whatever. There's a show called Queer Eye for the Straight Guy. They rebooted on Netflix.
Might have heard of that.
Yeah. It was big in the 90s. It was important to me because it was like the first time that like queer culture was like in mass media, like not as a villain, not as a parody, like just on people's televisions, easy to digest. But they rebooted, and I was on the track to being one of the Fab Five, the food and beverage specialists, and it really broke my heart for a while. But when I go back and like I sort of read the agreement, like I didn't really understand that. The language is there; it's laid bare for you, but like, you cannot tell people that you're involved. You cannot tell people that it's something that you're interested in. You can't tell people what you've done, what you've talked about. You can't talk about your figures and salaries, which is like my third piece of advice. Like, I think everybody benefits when we have conversations specifically about like monetary value, like when we come to the table with them and share them with our friends and people that we care for. It's super important to me that like, whenever I work with brand partners, I will be fully transparent about like, this is what they're doing for me. This is how much they're paying me. And over this period of time and for this deliverable. I think people need to sort of know that we really, like, as artists and creators and producers and people with ideas, we really need to be there for each other. So other than that, like, it's really lonely because you put your heart and soul into projects, you know, a pilot or a script or whatever, and it doesn't get picked up, and then you're back at square one, but you don't get to talk about it, and you feel crazy for it.
It hurts. They always say it's lonely at the top, but it's lonely hiding behind creating things. That's something I've also learned too, as being a creator, that you want to give everything off in the beginning, but you kind of have to scale it out slowly, so that people, if you give them everything right in the beginning, then they're going to expect bigger and bigger results down the road. Yeah. So it's something like Apple does, right? Yeah. Like with their phone, where they give you a small upgrade every year.
And then we like downcycle every model that pre-existed before that iteration. Yeah.
Yeah. So I could see that in the world of somebody who's creating, I guess you'd be creating content, or you're jumping on board of a show that's creating content. Yeah. That you're not necessarily just losing money like you would in a startup, but you're investing your emotions and your time into
Absolutely.
it.
And if we're just talking about like the way that the market works, like content is king. I can't tell you how many auditions I've been to, how many tables I've been to, like production tables I've been to, and the first question they ask is like, how many followers do you have? And what's that organic number look like? And what's your Google ranking? But like, content is king, and I think we all need to get more comfortable with the idea that like what we're doing is content. Like, this is content. The photos you take are content. Like, that is your currency. That's your value. And you have to know how to evaluate that when you put it out into the world.
I have such a weird relationship when it comes to that exact phrase, content is king.
Yeah.
Because
I do too. I hate it.
That's yes. This is gonna be a perfect conversation then before we get out of here, because I've always felt like I was somebody who likes to build physical things that you could see, tangible objects. Sure. And that sometimes like creating content, it seems like a cop out to me at times. Even though I'm doing this now.
What do you mean?
It just like the pod. We'll use podcasts for example. Sure. It's authentic conversations. and people are gaining value out of it. But from like an internal perspective, I don't feel like this is my all. I feel like I could create something that's more valuable to the world. Like I had 2 previous businesses. I had an antique store, and then I had a ticket verification app that I tried to do.
What? Antique store?
Yeah, with my father. So it was called Next Gen Pickers. It was by UNLV, lasted a year and a half. It was fun experience. Then the other thing was called Chameleon Verify app, which fought ticket fraud.
Yep.
And so I felt like creating something like an app would provide much more value to the world because it's something that people are using.
Sure.
You know, they're saving money, whatever.
Yeah.
But content, it's just like you living almost. You know, you're just speaking or you're acting, you're living. Like you said, this is all content.
Yeah.
And so just like recording your everyday activities or conversations or whatever and then putting it out there, people are deriving more value out of it, but it's in a different sort of resource. You know, it's entertainment rather than valuable. I don't know. I can't even think of the word at the time, but it's a different form of value that people are deriving. Yeah. And even though it is like our authentic selves doing it, you're not necessarily creating something that took a lot of innovative thinking.
Okay.
Because, you know, like podcasts and a lot of content's been around for a long time, whereas people who are creating apps, things that are going out and fixing things, I guess, is more like the emphasis on it. So I think it's almost like I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place, because the rock would be my personal philosophical views.
Sure.
And then the hard place would be what people are actually gaining out of this and how entertainment actually is king at this point in time. If that was a large thing to package, but I
think you're just getting older.
Yeah, I guess so.
All right. So before we get out of here, I want to talk about some things, but like we'll do them like fast fact if that's cool with you. Okay. Let's do it. I wanted to talk a little bit about food and some of the projects that I was working on.
Yes, cool, that is something you brought up to me. Yes.
Yeah. So currently I'm working at Valley Cheese and Wine. Please come get some cheese and wine. We build the best cheese boards in town. Las Vegas's oldest cheese shop. It's across town from here, but it's well worth the drive. But I'm also developing my first book, which hopefully will come out next year.
Yes.
It is called Food Baby, and it is a collection of what I consider to be bulletproof recipes. So a bulletproof recipe is anything that takes like 8 or fewer ingredients, and you couldn't fuck it up if you tried. I mean, like, God, I don't want to like give away too much. But
here we're back. We're circling the wagon.
No, that's fine. Yeah. So bulletproof recipes. If you have any sort of nerdy hobby, I want everyone to like grab onto that with both hands. Pokemon is amazing. I go for it. Animal Crossing, I don't care. Let's see. Oh, I want to ask you a question.
Do it.
This is like super random, but I'm going to do it anyway. I don't care.
Shoot it.
Have you ever been in love?
You know, I don't think so.
And the answer is no?
No.
Huh.
No, okay. I've had some failed relationships along the way,
sure.
But I think I was immature.
Does pineapple go on pizza?
Yes.
Really?
I'll eat it. Yeah, I'm down for it.
Huh.
I think food is more of an experimentation than it is, like a cold hard objective truth. So it's to whatever people's taste bud is.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. Sweet or salty?
Salty.
Sweet.
Dude, what's mine say?
What? Oh yeah.
Sweet.
Gross, man. Well, this was really fucking fun.
This was beautiful. I know we'll end up having another conversation again. We have about 10 minutes.
Oh, do we?
Yeah, about 10 minutes. Yeah, I have to.
Sweet.
We were gonna go longer, but my mom threw a doctor's appointment on me last second, so got to take her out. But
sure.
Please tell me about your book, because I've tried writing a book before too. Never got published, but putting cold hard sweat tears, that's something more tangible that I was talking about previously.
Yep. So just on a tangible, like really quick, but on a tangible level, I'm doing everything top to bottom bow to stern for this book. I am doing copywriting, I am photographing, I'm editing, I'm writing the recipes, I'm conceptualizing the recipes, testing them to make sure that they actually fucking work. And it's been a really long struggle. It's been like 4 years in development. And then on a spiritual, like sort of creative level, it just aims to solve problems. And it's sort of aimed at the idea of like getting people engaged and excited about being in the kitchen that really don't see themselves there very often. I want people to know that delicious food is often cheaper than it is at restaurants and at grocery stores or supermarkets, and you can make it yourself, and it's actually really easy. Like it's really easy. I would never admit that to any of my chef friends, but I find it really easy to do.
So do you think writing almost sounds like it's more of like how to be a personal chef and create things a little bit more
It's a blend of narrative and recipes. It's definitely my first book, so it's my introduction to the world. And every recipe sort of comes with a story. There's a chapter in there about like my exes and like what I cooked to get over all of them. But like that kind of thing. Like I want to sort of put a face on the food, but I also want the food to be really great. So you can be a personal chef with it. Like there's a section about like adding twists to things, and there's also like a really fun section about like if you have leftovers of this is what you do with it. Like it branches off into a few more ideas, and then there's cocktail recipes, and there's a lot of stuff that goes into it, and it's taken a lot of time. And I'm really sorry if anybody's listening. I know I've hyped up this book for literally years, but like I promise it's coming. It's just taken a lot of work.
Pouring your heart and soul into a book, it's tough.
Yeah.
Writer's block is real.
Why didn't yours get published? Like, why did you put it forward? Did you finish it?
I did finish it.
Okay.
So I could just tell people it was called a Raver's Hand Bible, and it was basically 160 pages of everything that goes into raving, from the ideation of going to a festival, crowd navigation, going to boats and all these different things. So that was in the heart of my raving. This was a year after I'd graduated college. I just didn't know how to navigate the publishing world.
Sure.
And I hit a standstill, and then I just eventually got involved into other things, and it kind of just sits on my...
Are you going to come back to it?
Yeah. There's another book that I want to start once I can kind of delegate some of the podcasting stuff to other people down the road, that I want to start another book and kind of give that as a free addition to that first book.
Nice.
And to make sure, because like we said, writing books are tough.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of time, and it never seems perfect. Even though I had gone through the rough draft about 3 times, it still never felt perfect.
Yeah. That's actually been a process of mine, is that like I put out a recipe and I'm like, this is amazing, and then I'll cook it better like a month later, and I have to like go back and change everything about it. But it's never going to be perfect. But I think as long as you give people like a really good idea of where you're at in space and time, we're really we're along for the ride with you, man. Like people just want to root for you.
I appreciate it. And
we're
rooting for you.
Thanks, man.
I always ask the same 2 questions to everyone before we get out of here.
Sure.
The first question is, the year is 2030.
Okay.
What does, I guess, the life of D'Andre Balaoing look like?
So, if we're talking about stuff we can't talk about, projects, there will be probably a restaurant or 2, maybe a bakery. I have a deep obsession, I don't know why, with like mid-century diners. That whole like sort of like jukebox and like malted egg cream milkshake kind of place. So maybe something like that. But also, I've got things in the works. I don't know if you're familiar in Japanese cuisine. There's a thing called yakitori, which is basically just grilled meats on a stick. Like I love the concept of like an open flame barbecue. So something like that, something that maybe celebrates my Filipino heritage a little bit. Yeah. So there'll be a couple brick and mortars. I will probably be just as hard to find, hard to get a hold of as ever, and hopefully like still looking flawless, because I'm turning 30, so we're getting up there.
Still look the same as before.
So do you. You haven't changed at all. It's kind of scary.
Oh, yeah, at least this time now I have your phone number, so I can get in contact with you, and that we can do this again.
Yeah, I would love to. We should probably talk about this off mic, but whatever. If you ever do that idea of where you bring back like previous guests as duos, I've got a couple people. I've got a couple. I'm not going to call you up by name, but I've got a couple people I want to come back with.
Yeah, I'm actually starting that in a few weeks.
Nice.
I think I'm going to do it once a month,
Yeah.
and eventually I want to try to get that on the live stream, but I have to still figure that whole thing out. This whole thing's still so new to me, but
Cool.
slowly learning. And I have one more question for you.
Yes.
This is the most important one.
Mm-hmm.
Is what does Las Vegas mean to you?
Oh God, Las Vegas it really is. First off, there's nowhere in the world quite like it. Las Vegas is special, but for me, Las Vegas is about rebirth. Las Vegas is about rebirth, whatever that means to you creatively, physically, it's about, for me, the opportunity to like make the life that I always wanted that I never had. And all I needed was the magic that Las Vegas offers, which is you can have anything you want in this life. All you have to know is how to ask. Mm-hmm.
Ask and it is given.
Yeah, man.
It's a famous book.
Yeah.
How can everyone get involved with your different projects and follow you?
Yeah. So I am currently, like I said, I'm at Valley Cheese and Wine. But if you want to get in touch with me over Instagram, it is D'Andre to go. There's underscores in between D'Andre and to and go. I know it's annoying. I can't change it. I'm in the verification pipeline. I can't change it now, which is really annoying. But get a hold of me there. I'm also on Facebook at Chef D'Andre Balaoing. My Twitter is mostly just like video game and like nerdy, ranty musings. So if you're into that sort of thing, if that sounds like your thing, come find me there. Just as a content warning, you won't find anything NSFW, but I am just very loud and very disrespectful about video games.
I like that. Twitter is life.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's like the worst thing. It's like single-handedly, it's like the worst thing for us as like a population. It makes us all worse people, but like, I can't help it, man.
I can't
Give
stop.
it to me. Give it to me.
I had Twitter before Instagram, before all that stuff, before Facebook.
Yeah.
Everything. It is life.
We got to talk about social media platforms.
Yeah. I know we're going to do this again because there is still so much that we didn't talk about, and we could go definitely much longer. Yeah. I very much enjoyed this. This is, as you'd asked before, what one of my favorite podcasts is. This definitely goes down as one of my favorite ones.
Stop. You say that to everybody. But
I do not.
I'm glad we did this because the next time I come through, I was planning on bringing like a hot plate and I was going to cook something like right here, like as we record.
Whoa, flames.
So maybe
Let's
next
do
time.
it.
Oh, no, it's induction. No flames. But like, yeah, next time for sure, I'm bringing spaghetti. So get ready.
Yes. You guys heard it here first. You saw it here first. If you're watching on the YouTube page, make sure you subscribe and all that fun jazz with social media and Spotify, Apple Podcast. Follow D'Andre and get involved because food is life. Twitter is life.
Food is life. And if you have a chance, please go support Gilcrease Orchards and the Okra Project and Glitz. Please help Black and queer trans folk with food insecurity. It would make me super happy if you get me anything for my birthday, if you care at all.
Yes, happy early birthday.
Thanks,
September
man.
1, correct?
September 2nd.
Sorry.
September 2nd. Yeah, 30.
I was close.
You're so close. It's okay.
All right. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time.
Bye.